and environmentalists. Thank you for having me here.
All right, thank you, Engineer Dapo. Please, Ejiro Gray, please.
Good morning, all. My name is Ejiro Gray. I'm Director of Governance and Sustainability for the Sahara Group. The Sahara Group is an integrated energy company with operations across Africa, Europe, and Asia. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you. Dayo Igun, please. Over to you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Dayo, and I'm the Operations Manager at the United Nations Global Compact Network Nigeria.
All right, thank you. All right, Blessing Edet.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Blessing Edet, a research assistant at Women in Energy Network. Nice to be here.
All right, thank you. Asamino Omenzi. We can move to Sylvia Akuma.
Hello.
Hello? Hello? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes,
I hear you.
All right, okay, sure. I think Sylvia was speaking. Fatima Ibrahim, Aaron, please.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. My name is Fatima Ibrahim Haruna. I'm an associate director with IHN Stars. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bassi, please.
Good morning. Was that for me?
Yes, please.
Hello?
Yes, Bassi.
Okay, great. Good morning. My name is Bassi Adir. I'm the Managing Director of Lloyd's Marine Services and also the Director of Partnerships and Strategic Partnerships and Conferences at the Women in Energy Network. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining, Bassi. Ogochukwu.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ogochukwu Okekbulu. I'm a certified executive advisor, a sustainability advocate with the U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights. I think that will be all for now.
All right. And there's a name here called Light. Kindly introduce yourself. Thank you. All right, Engineer Stalin, kindly introduce yourself.
All right, thank you so much for having me. I'm Engineer Stanley Asabo, President, CEO, Stars Legacy Group. Stars Legacy Group is made up of Stars Legacy Limited, Stars Legacy CNG Auto Gas Limited, our CNG conversion center, and Stars Legacy Premium Solutions. We also have Stars Legacy Microfinance Institute and Stars Legacy Empowerment Organization. So, and lastly, Stars Legacy Transportation Services Limited.
All right, thank you, Engineer Stanley. Sylvia Akuma.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, my name is Sylvia Akuma, Head of Business Development. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Engineer Ago Jane.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Engineer Ago Jane, the Principal Technical Officer, National Automotive Design Development Council, the President Director General.
All right, thank you. Orutu, POBY. Orutu POBY, kindly introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Orutu Yedere Peace. I'm a retail sales associate from Simba Group.
All right, thank you for joining. Chinwe Adindu.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Chinwe Oluwatoyin Adindo. I work with the National Council on Climate Change as a principal scientific officer. Good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ibrahim Yassid. Hi, Ibrahim. All right, so I think in the absence of that, we can take it from here. Am I still very audible, please? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, but I would like to introduce myself.
Okay, sure, please do.
My name is Asanimo Umezi. I am the Executive Secretary of Women in Energy Network, a network created in 2020 to close the diversity gap in the energy value chain. So we are very strong on STEM and also the pipeline to ensure that we have young girls ready to take on jobs and eventually leadership positions in the sector. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you for joining. So I think in the absence of that, we can
Hello.
start.
Hello.
Hello.
So, good morning, sir. I'm Kafui Milsodwe. I head inclusion at MasterCard Foundation and love to be here. Thrilled about the conversation, and I have my colleague also here, so I'll allow him to also share his views and thoughts. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kafui. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Dr. Serrano, MasterCard Foundation. I lead the Innovation and Sandbox team. So it's great to be here, everyone.
All right, thank you so much for joining. Anyone else before we begin? So thank you. In the absence of that, we could start. Good morning again. And I mean, thank you everyone for joining. We truly appreciate your time. And I mean, I know how full calendars are, and your presence really does matter. I'd like to begin by acknowledging our co-conveners, Naomi Wokolo, the Executive Director and the Chief Executive Officer at the United Nations Global Compact Network Nigeria, and Dr. Nuruddin Abubakar Zaru, the Technical Advisor to the President on Economic and Financial Inclusion. Thank you always for your support. My name is Unduku Obina, and I'm the founder of the Africa Green Future Forum and CEO of Oxtra. Oxtra is a technology-driven sustainable mobility company, pretty much focused on solving urban transport challenges through electric and environmental, social governance aligned solutions. And at its core, the Africa Green Future Forum is an extension of that vision. So the platform through which we convene stakeholders to drive broader sustainability, innovation, and economic transformation across the continent. And I'd like to also acknowledge the presence of every one of us that has joined across the government and the private sectors, from the government, NNPC, the NCCC, the National Council on Climate Change, and the NADBC. And from the private sectors and partner organizations, the IHS Towards Nigeria, the Electric Mobility Promoters Association of Nigeria.
Okay.
Hello?
Oh, apologies, sorry. My speaker wasn't working earlier. Apologies, please continue.
Yeah, okay, that's okay. And Sahara Group, EcoSplat Synergy Limited, the MasterCard Foundation, Stars Legacy, Simba Group, and the Women in Energy Network. Thank you for your presence. And we also like to acknowledge and appreciate all the participants and organizations joining. Of course, whose names may have not been mentioned. Engagement like this only work when the right institutions come together with shared intent, and we are pleased to be building this alongside you. With that, I'd like to briefly set the context for today's conversation. And I mean, across Africa's green transition, the challenge is no longer ambition. It's now a conversation about execution. And we are seeing momentum in policy, and we see momentum in financing and market opportunities. For example, I mean, Nigeria's carbon market framework is a recent example, but on the ground, progress remains slower than expected. And at the center of it all is a clear reality. The green economy is projected to create over 10 million jobs by 2030, and yet the talent pipeline, especially in technical areas, remain limited. So then what happens? What are the implications? Growth slows, projects stall, opportunities remain untapped, and the gap is why we are here. The gap is why we are having this conversation. So basically, the Africa Green Future Forum is not just a convening, it's a working platform designed to unlock these bottlenecks and move forward. So because we've had enough conversation, we now need results. And that is where the She Can Fix initiative comes in, which is pretty much the national legacy project of the Africa Green Future Forum. So it's not a typical inclusion program, it's a workforce solution. And what we intend to do is to build a pipeline for role in compressed natural gas conversion, electric mobility, renewable systems, and maintenance, and starting from industry demand and not just training supply. So that when people are trained, they are not just ready, they are deployable to organizations. And our focus on women is very intentional, not just for the purpose of inclusion, actually, but then because it definitely strengthens economic outcomes and strengthens livelihoods, as a matter of fact, as skill. And so today is not about long presentations. It's about moving from this is the issue, what are the challenges, what are the issues, to this is what we can do next, what can we do next, practically and in the nearest future or in the next term. And as we begin, I'd like for us to focus on 3 questions. Number 1, what constraints are we facing? What are the challenges, like I mentioned earlier? What are your workforce gaps? And what would it take to start closing them within the nearest future, within the next couple of months? And if we get this right, something should move and scale from here. And thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, everyone, for joining. And I look forward to the conversation. At this point, I would like to introduce one of our co-convening partners. And it's my pleasure to introduce and invite Dr. Nuruddin Abubakar Zaro, the technical advisor to the President on economic and financial inclusion. His work sits right at the intersection where inclusion moves from concepts into systems, into design, and where access is not assumed, but definitely intentionally built. And as we work towards readiness and access to opportunities and how women can meaningfully participate in the green economy, that sort of perspective becomes very critical. So, sir, we are very pleased to have you with us, and I would like to warmly invite you to deliver your address. Thank you, sir. Doctor, are you there, sir? Hi, Gloria. If you can hear me, is there an update from Naomi? Maybe she can go. Doctor isn't on the call yet. Hi, Gloria. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Just a minute or two. She was in, but network threw her out, so she's trying to join again.
All right, so I guess we can proceed with the rest of the conversation.
Yes.
Then yeah, so I mean, so to guide us with this conversation,
Maybe we can just start with the
with the conversation with
my
Daniel.
camera. Yes. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Gloria. I head programs and partnerships at the United Nations Global Compact. As Obinna has already shared and set the context for the conversation, we're excited to have everyone in the room here who is an ecosystem player, one way or the other, also very, very involved in shaping the conversation on how we can close the inclusion gap. We have a couple of poll questions. And so maybe we just launch the first poll so that it gets everyone, because it might take time for people to give their thoughts on it whilst we wait for the speakers to give their opening. So can we have the first poll question? Is it possible for that to be shared? And we'll just have everyone give their thoughts. So we can collate that and move then into the conversation from the responses. Okay, so I believe the questions should be on the screen right now. So these are the questions that they're the questions in the agenda that was shared to everyone. Also the agenda that was in the calendar invite. So these are the questions that will frame the discussions that we're going to have. And these questions were drawn up in such a way that everyone here has, there is definitely something we'd like to hear from your perspective as a private sector player, policy player, regulator, or someone who is an employer or a trainer. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. So please confirm if we can see the polls. Can we all see the poll questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the nudge. So we would appreciate if we can just, give our thoughts so we can start forming the foundation for the dialogue. Thank you.
Let's see that. Challenge. All right, Gloria, you're muted.
Sorry, I was just saying we'll give it 2 more minutes and then we'll go back and take in the address. I see Naomi has been able to join back, so we'll just give 2 more minutes and we'll go back to taking the address. But these are some of the questions that we will be discussing in the dialogue. So let's give it 1 more minute before we take this again just before we go into dialogue so we can get at least half of the people in the room give some responses. But I will hand over now to Naomi to give the special address.
Thank you, Gloria. Hi, Obina. Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Naomi. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you. So thank you, everyone, for being here. And I want to start by saying how much it means to be co-convening this conversation, and a huge appreciation to the other co-conveners from Oxtra Energies, Obina and his team, and the Presidential Committee on Economic and Financial Inclusion, alongside other ecosystem partners, because this is not a dialogue we are participating in from the sidelines. It's a work we are deeply invested in. So let me say a few words about who we are, because I think it shapes everything that follows in the course of our time here on this call. The UN Global Compact is the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative. We bring together more than 20,000 companies and organizations across 160 countries. But the description I find most honest is this, that we are the bridge between business ambition and real-world accountability. We work with companies to make sustainability less of a statement and more of a practice in how they hire, how they invest, and how they build local capacity, and how they allow themselves to be held to account for it. In Nigeria, that work is really grounded. We sit with companies, large corporates, and growing local businesses alike, and walk through what responsible business actually looks like in practice. In this economy, with these infrastructure realities, this is workforce, and the opportunities that are fast emerging around us. And one of the clearest of those opportunities is the green economy. Clean energy is on track to generate over 30 million jobs globally by 2030. And Africa is positioned to absorb a real and significant share of that in renewables, in infrastructure, in new industrial value chains that simply did not exist a decade ago. So the growth is coming, and that is real. And the investment is moving too. So the urgent question is whether our people, and specifically our women, will be inside that growth or watching it from the outside. Because what we are seeing, honestly, is a gap between the pace of the transition and the readiness of the workforce to meet it. And within that gap, there is a pattern we have seen before. Opportunity expands, but access does not follow equally. We cannot let that happen again. And when we talk about inclusion in the green workforce, we are not speaking about distant ideals. We're talking about roles that exist right now and are going unfulfilled. Technical roles, industrial roles, roles that require specific skills, structured pathways, and employers who are willing to build pipelines rather than simply wait for them. Companies are actively exploring how to invest in green workforce development from what we've seen, and how to build technical capacity locally, and how they want to align their talent strategies closely with their sustainability commitments. And the data gives them reason to do so. Closing gender gaps in labor markets could add up to $12 trillion in global GDP. And the African Development Bank have estimated that gender inequality is costing our continent 6% of GDP every single year. Companies with genuine gender diversity, not just at the top, but across their operations, are consistently outperformed on profitability, innovation, and long-term resilience. And in the green economy specifically, the evidence shows that gender diverse teams produce stronger outcomes on the very climate and sustainability decisions that will define this sector. So when we talk about including women in this transition, we are not talking about the right thing at the expense of doing the smart thing. We're actually talking about the same thing. And so I want us to leave with one question as we go into this dialogue on how do we actually collaborate across business, across education, policy and development finance to make this happen in the near term. Not in 5 years, not in the next strategy cycle, but now. Where are the real connection points between those creating demand for green skills and those who can build the pipelines to meet it? And what does coordinated action look like when we leave this conversation today? So the transition will not wait for us. It's already moving in our job, in this space, with the relationships and influence that we carry. And it's to make sure it moves with our people inside it. So I'm looking forward to a great dialogue today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Naomi. I mean, I think what you've done so clearly is bring us back to what really matters. I mean, this is not a future conversation. It's a now conversation, and the opportunities are already here, and the role already exists, and also the gap we are trying to solve is very real. So you've left out with a very important question. I mean, how do we actually connect the dots between ambition? How do we connect the dots between policy, between finance, and most importantly, the people who need to be part of this transition? And I mean, and that naturally brings us to the next voice in this conversation. Apologies, Dr. Nuruddin. Zoro is yet to join the call. We definitely would notify you and everyone when he's available to speak, to give his remarks. Gloria, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Obinna. So thanks again, and thank you everyone for taking the time to join. So just before we, go into the dialogue, I just have just a few slides to set the context on why we are even talking about this. What is beyond inclusion? Why are we very, very, like the speakers have said, why is it important that we do what we need to do now for the future? So just to confirm that everyone can still hear me and see my screen. Okay. So today, as we gather here, we're not just talking about inclusion as a buzzword, because when we look at the data before us, on the next slide that I would share now, the data shows that 8% of women are in STEM roles, according to the Nigeria Renewable Energy Society. This was a survey done in 2025 that showed 8% of women in STEM roles, 79% of those women in vulnerable employment. And while female labor market participation is high at 80.7, according to the World Bank and the Future of Jobs report, only 10.5% of those women are in formal jobs. So the green economy is set to create over 10 million jobs by 2030, but we still see that only 32% of women occupy renewable energy roles. And we keep saying that Africa has a growing young population. That is the gold mine for Africa. But if we don't do what we need to do and act right, we will be left behind, even in tapping into that opportunity. Here we can also see the Nigeria paradox that shows we're a country rich in people. We have a high population in Africa. Every year, 10 to 12 million Africans enter the workforce, yet only 3 million jobs are created. And Nigeria alone accounts for 25% of the 68 million new jobs needed by 2030. So again, the conversation is very important for us to hone in on the green sectors. Energy transition conversations are already happening, even from the policy side and across board. Solar, CNG, electric vehicles, like some of us represent here, and recycling and the circular economy. We can't scale that if we don't have the workforce for that. The opportunities are clear, and it's only when we diversify that we would be able to really tap into that. So like Obina shared, She Can Fix is one of the engines and the platforms that we thought of to see how to bridge this gap. And I will go into why we are also utilizing the approach that we're utilizing now. I won't talk much about She Can Fix because Obina had already laid the ground, but I want to say that our approach for even targeting these females and seeing how to bridge the inclusion gap is, focusing more on the demand side. So this is demand driven, and that's why we're having this dialogue. We're first of all focusing on CNG conversion, solar, off-grid, electric mobility, because those are becoming burning needs and where the shift globally and economically, where the shift is moving. And so we see She Can Fix as the initiative that could help us see how to bring competent hands, bridge that gap into developing talent and delivering job-ready women for roles that have historically been close to them. Now, what would it cost us if we do not act now? What do we stand to lose if we do not do anything at all? The cost of inaction for us, as we see here, is that we will not be able to meet our targets. When we talk about the carbon emissions and where we're going as a country, every conversation now that connects to the environment, if we do not do anything about bridging this gap, if we do not do anything about ensuring we have the right skills, people have the right skills to even thrive in the green economy, it will lead to lost business contracts and delayed climate targets. And so the call to action for everyone, because I don't have too much I just want to set the context, but I believe that for most of us in the room, since this is a field we largely play in and we're passionate about this, we already have some of these, data and information. So what we would call on you right now as we go into dialogue is to speak passionately from a solution-oriented lens. Tell us, what we know that there might be issues, there might be constraints, we know that there might be challenges. What is the way forward? What is the best approach for us to contribute on how we can contribute to bridge the inclusion gap in the green economy? And just like the poll questions that we shared earlier, those will be the questions that will guide the dialogue. So the flow is going to be this way. We will launch the poll questions again. We had a few responses earlier. We'll launch the poll questions. From the responses, I will call on some of the players in the room because I know some of us there are some of us that are more in tune in terms of where we stand in the ecosystem. So I'll call on some players, but please feel free to also, if you would like to speak, just raise your hand or unmute. And if you want to drop an additional comment, you can also just put it in the chat. I would encourage us, because this is a virtual dialogue and we would love to really keep to time. So I would encourage responses or contributions to be as brief as possible, a maximum of 2 minutes, so we can at least hear all the voices in the room. And so the dialogue begins. I look forward to the conversations. Yes.
Thank you, Gloria. Please kindly give me a few minutes. I'd like to introduce Dr. Nuruddin Abubakar Zaru, the technical advisor to the president on economic and financial inclusion. So like I said earlier, his work sits right at that intersection where inclusion moves from concept into now system design, and where access is not assumed but intentionally built. And as we think about workforce readiness, access to opportunities, and how more women can meaningfully impact the green economy, that very perspective becomes very crucial. Sir, we are very pleased to have you with us. I would now like you to warmly invite you to deliver your address. Thank you, sir.
Hello, can you see me there now? Hello.
Yes, sir, we continue.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you so much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and thanks a lot to the organizers of this very beautiful dialogue. I'm quite excited when I log on, before you called on my name. I think I've had a beautiful presentation from the previous speaker, the one that just finished now. I think it's quite exciting, honestly. And thanks a lot to Nigerians who are on this call right now, having this very beautiful dialogue conversation around beyond inclusion, especially as it affects women in Nigeria. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy actually being part of this, very important conversation. This is something that aligns perfectly with the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President Bola, and also in line with our mandate at the PRESIPI. PRESIPI, like you know, stands for Presidential Committee on Economic and Financial Inclusion, who are currently holding the mandate of implementing the ASUA Accord on Economic and Financial Inclusion. Somewhere in 2014, precisely on 25th of April this year, 2024, sorry, an accord was signed in order to promote, a commitment of the administration to support inclusion, as well as commitment, recognition, and then finally collaboration and partnership. And among this partnership, we also encourage partnership among the ecosystem players, like private sector to private sector. That is what we call private-private partnership. We also promote, public-public partnership among the public sector actors. We do believe that the government cannot do it alone, so it requires a lot of partnership and collaborations. All the countries that succeeded across the world, they are based on the private sector support that actually happens. So that's why I'm quite excited when this conversation, when I was given the opportunity to have, to say a word in this kind of beautiful conversation. I think it's quite exciting. So I would really appreciate, at the end of the whole conversation, if there's anything that requires some policy conversation or consideration, I think we would tell you that we would be gladly, there to have it. So in the course of this, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, beyond inclusion, we are talking about sustainability, because if somebody now, gets open an account, have a BVN number, and he has what they call it, NIN number, he is now fully onboarded into the schemes of payment. The question is, what next? You see, there is a need for sustainability, and the quality of services that is rendered by the financial services providers, I think, matters a lot in this regard. And for that to happen, there has to be that, those parameters that actually need to be in place for sustainable trust in the ecosystem. If the customer or the user of those services does not trust the system, then definitely there's going to be, a challenge. When you're also talking about economic inclusion, economic opportunities, including the green economy component and also climate-related issues we're talking about, of course, our prioritization, goes to women, and that's exactly why Mr. President is so keenly, interested in considering women, not only in governance, not only in elective position, not only in appointed position, also in the economic opportunities. In our slogan, in our presidential committee, we say no one is left behind. So we are saying that every economically active Nigerian stands a right to participate in the schemes of event. Accordingly, we precisely on 30th January 2025, PRESIPI was actually inaugurated. She's Included initiative was inaugurated. She's Included, of course, stand for supporting women at the presidential level. We are saying that all the initiatives, such as what is going on right now, any initiative in support of women, is something that the government also want to take a stock of what is happening, so that we can project it to the decision makers of the country. And if there's any need for them to come in and make any impact at that level, then definitely they will act swiftly. So you can see that it is being hosted in the office of the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and of course being televised to the National Economic Council, which is the second most powerful constitutionally recognized, what you call a committee, where all the governors, subnationals are members of that committee, so that swift decision can actually be taken. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, without having to say much, also just about a month ago, precisely on 2nd of February, this administration, of course, in our committee, if you look at the publicity, you will see me representing the federal government signing a very powerful MOU with the top 6 professional bodies, including ICANN, CIBN, and quite a lot of them, Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers, NICA, NIIE, and then CRMI, to sign an agreement with them to train not less than 10 million Nigerians in digital literacy, financial literacy, agriculture, health, and quite a lot of other things using digital platform. We are in partnership with Allison, who are the global trainers, as well as WOW Africa. That has also been, the platform has been unveiled. I always like to use this opportunity to tell dear Nigerians that that initiative is coming to you free of charge, zero cost. So if you want to go into onboarding, I don't know if I've shared with you the organizer. If not, we will be able to share with you, Mr. Namdi, so that you can be able to broadcast to our dear listeners. Let them go and get onboarded. They are expecting not them to pay a dime for onboarding for the training. You can do the training, you can finish it up to 1 year, or you can finish it within 1 month, depending on how much time do you have for that initiative. But again, there is also, the training is free, but for those who want to obtain certificates, they may have to pay for the certificate. That is between you and the organizers. And there are more than 6,000 courses that you are opportune to go into, which we have created that platform. We're going to do a lot of publicity, and just also for you to know, in fact, you can even obtain a certificate, or certificate as well as diploma courses in those programs. One of the exciting things I would like to tell you, about 1 week ago, we have been able to, because this is a globally recognized certification program. Like I said, training free. If you need a physical paper certificate, then you pay for the certificate. But what I'm trying to bring to your notice is that among the job, because we have engaged so many hiring companies. So one of them has offered us 10,000 job slots for any of the graduates of this particular program within the chosen area. So I'll also make it available for you, just for you to know. We are discussing with quite a lot of them, because we want to encourage a situation whereby you would be in your comfort zone, in your room. Even in these climate-related issues, we can have a lot of jobs that can also come around. So some of them, they do offer also that we can encourage Nigerians to offer them opportunities, and that is what we call economic inclusion. So beyond just opening an account, beyond inclusion, you deserve an economic opportunity as a Nigerian, being empowered, being supported by this administration under Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to do too much of the politics, but what I'm saying here is that it is indeed necessary, it is important for us to be part of this kind of beautiful initiative. And I would like to commend the organizers of this program, and please, at any given time I'm needed, not only me, if Mr. President is needed, please, we can be able to pass your message across to ensure that you are considered in decision-making level in the country. So Mr. Obina and the entire team, I truly appreciate you, and I look forward to next step beyond inclusion for us to support women. Finally, this year, hashtag She's Included, we have signed MOU with the World Bank under Women in Energy Network in order to promote women in terms of for them to rise to the top, as well as to be sustainable within their jobs environment, and also to support women for STEMs, this science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and all of that, in order for them to play within the energy sector. This is in relationship with the World Bank under its initiative of Mission 300, where they aim at powering 300 million African women, right? So we have a component of it that is called WEN Africa. WEN Africa means Women in Energy Network Africa. So currently, She's Included is the only strategic partner. So we are going to unveil the companies that we have onboarded in our event, which is going to be the second version of the She's Included conference coming up on 24th of June in the presidency, where it happened also last year. She's Included, I was a convener of that initiative on 30th of January last year, 2025. So this year is going to come out on 24th of June. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are going to make the necessary publicity around it so that we encourage Nigerian women to take advantage of what lies for them and what is actually available in line with the national blueprint of this administration, Renewed Hope Agenda. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate you, and thank you so much, Mr. Obina and the team, for this opportunity to speak to Nigerians. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, sir, for that perspective. I think what this does is sort of reinforce something very important for all of us, that this is not just about opportunity, but about how systems are intentionally designed to help ensure that people can actually access that opportunity. We've now heard clearly from Dr. Nuruddin Zaro and Naomi Nwokolo from both the business side and the policy angle. So this question before us is how these pieces now begin to connect in practice, where demand, where skills and financing and access starts to begin in a way that produces real outcomes. And that's exactly what the next session is all about. So, I'd like to hand over to Gloria Mukuri, the head of programs at the UNGCN, to continue with the rest of the conversation. Thank you. Gloria, over to you.
Thank you, Obinna, and thank you, Dr. Nuruddin, for joining. And great to see that there are initiatives that accelerate women inclusion. We're always happy to hear that. So without taking too much time, because I know that we all have busy schedules, and we would really, really love to hear from everyone who has joined this conversation. I want to just share again the housekeeping rules, which are to, as we take on the questions, please keep the contributions brief, 1 minute plus 90 seconds if possible, so that everyone can get to speak, because we'd really, really love to get the perspectives from every person in the room. So we start with the first question, which was in the poll. And thanks for everyone who answered. What is the biggest workforce constraints slowing the expansion of green industries in Nigeria? There were lots of responses to lack of technically trained entry-level talent. That took the most votes, with shortage of experienced mid-level technicians. So yeah, this is also just telling us that this conversation around bridging the talent gap is very, very paramount. And permit me to, before I open the floor to others, but I would like to call on some ecosystem players who I know this really sits well in their purview. I would love to hear from Sahara, IHS Towers, NNPC, and from a systems perspective, the representative from the NADDC, the Automobile Development Council, and the NCCC. So Sahara and IHS Towers, NNPC, you have the floor. And if any other person still, would like to jump at it, please feel free. So I open the floor.
Sorry, Gloria, could you just repeat the question? I think
Yes, the question is, what is the biggest workforce constraint slowing the expansion of green industries in Nigeria?
Okay, so I from my view, I think that the biggest workforce constraint, whilst it may be easy to jump in and say, well, lack of trained personnel or inability to verify the quality, right, of the training and all of that, I think that even more importantly, do businesses have a good idea of the demand pool, right, in the country, in Nigeria for this? I think that understanding that will help to create a situation where we're then able to identify where the holes are, where the gaps are. So the skills and the talents, having them in place is extremely important. The ability to certify them, right, in a standardized manner that will be acceptable to whatever organization is a second thing. But I think if you look at it from a macroeconomic perspective, what even is that demand pool in Nigeria? I'm not talking about general statistics all over the world, but in Nigeria in particular, because it's one thing to say you're preparing a workforce, but preparing for what? Is the demand already existing in Nigeria? The answer is yes. By how much? Then we take it from there.
Thank you. So please, housekeeping rules for us to mute. If you're not speaking, please mute your mic. Thank you very much, Ejiro, for that. Around what is the demand? If I hear it clearly, what is the demand? What do we really need in terms of the skills for Nigeria? What does that look like in definition? So I see Fatima had her camera off. I'd like to hear from you from the IHS Tower.
Good morning once again. So this is Fatima from IHS Tower. So your question is what is the biggest workforce constraint currently slowing the expansion of green industries, right? So some conversations around this, we've had this conversation from Dr. Nuruddin, from Ejiro, and from yourself on those gaps that have been identified. So from our own perspective in IHS, the most critical workforce constraints slowing the expansion of green industry is large and persistent green skills gap. Specifically, the shortage of adequately trained technical and vocational talent that aligns with the industry needs. We've had cases where we employ graduates, so to speak, but we don't have the certification or the proper training to align what they have learned to the business need. So that's one gap that has been identified by the business. And then we also identify the shortage of skilled personnel. So you see, Nigeria has an estimated 50% shortfall in skilled labor required for its renewable energy sector. So what that means is half of the needed roles remain unfilled. We have 50%, so we have 50% that are still not filled. So there is a shortage in that regard. So another gap that was identified or that has been identified by IHS is employers consistently struggle to find qualified engineers, to find technicians, to find installers and system operators, which directly delays project deployment. And you know what we do in IHS? We deploy towers, we deploy energy solutions, we deploy right-of-ways, fiber optic links, rural telephony. We're big on energy, but getting the right technician, getting the right engineer has always been a constraint for us. So that's one of the gaps. To get this personnel for deployment and scaling has always been a problem. So we have limited local capacity and knowledge transfer. So we rely so much on imported technology and expertise, and this has become a serious problem, getting domestic workers. Because most of the domestic workers you have lack the specialized competence. Primarily constrained not by capital or demand, but by a systemic shortage of industry-relevant technical skills and workforce, which limits both projects execution and sector growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I hear you on the shortage of skilled personnel, and just almost, corroborating with what Ejiro had mentioned.
Yeah.
And we have, perhaps I will also open the floor to the MasterCard team in the room, because I know that there are initiatives already existing where, there are interventions to see how to train more people, to get more people to fill these gaps. So what is really the issue? So I'd like to hear from the policy guys, and then from the foundation development partners perspective, what do we still think is missing? Because I feel there is work going on to see how to get more people, but still it seems like we're not getting it right. I think anyone from the MasterCard team can speak to it.
Thank you, Gloria. This is Dr. Vilsodwe. Pleasure to be here, and I'm glad to also say that from our perspective, right, we've recognized some very critical issues, and it's not far off from what two previous or earlier esteemed guests have shared. But what we take a gender or an inclusion perspective or lens to look at this, right? It is more or less the fact that the constraint is amplified for women and young women around critical issues. We've seen things around technical, limited access to technical training pathways, norms shaping appropriate work for women, right? And safety, mobility, things around caregiving constraints. We've also identified areas around weak transition mechanisms from training to paid work. As a result, and of this, the sector underutilizes a significant segment of the potential technical workforce Nigeria tends to have when it comes to the issue of gender and so of inclusion. But from our perspective, when we say inclusion, we critically want to talk about unlocking the barriers, right? Removing the barriers that disable marginalized groups that research has proven. Women, young persons with disabilities, persons who are displaced, and particularly. These are groups we've seen critically hit by this exclusive process. Yes, I mean, in as much as we have said this, we've realized that these can become strengthened. Women's participation tends to strengthen a particular level of trust and uptake because evidence from energy access and development sectors reveal that involvement of these groups increases adoption from what we have seen, correct usage, sustainability, and all. And we would want to emphasize that when we have gender diverse teams, they tend to improve service quality, safety culture, and customer satisfaction. So how will those four major areas that we've talked about, in addition to evidence, what are the gaps available? What are we filling, right? Specifically, how are we intentionally unlocking these barriers or these levers to enable young women and other vulnerable groups transition effectively into the dominated areas that are technical and have been perceived as predominantly male related. And my colleague is in heading a specific program that is enabling that, and would want to ask if Dr. Serrano would want to add something about that. Dr. Serrano, would you want to add that, or would you want it to?
Thank you very much, Kafui. I think your submission was pretty comprehensive, but I'll quickly add that in looking at the entire climate action space, one thing that we have done within the foundation is, first of all, to take a step back and create a current taxonomy, an appropriate and current taxonomy for the climate action space, and then view that taxonomy, view that space, view the functional areas through the lens of gender and inclusive systems to ensure that we are bringing on board the marginalized, the vulnerable, young women and youth across the entire climate action space. So there is an intentionality behind it to ensure, yes, we are discussing EVs, yes, we're discussing renewable energy and green energy, but how does gender work with that? How does climate finance work with that? How do other inclusive systems, how do we approach that in a very intentional fashion? So just like my colleague has said, Dr. Kafui, that that intentionality behind it, that gender lens, that inclusive lens is important to us, and it's one thing that we're extremely intentional about in attacking climate action. So yeah.
Thank you very
Gloria?
much, Dr. Kafue and Dr. Serrano, for those interesting perspectives. I'd also love to hear from those who manage the businesses like MPAN and the NADDC, who are also in the room. Engineer Additional is here to also share his perspective on what he feels is the constraints. From the electric mobility side, yes, now there's like need for EVs, but do we have, I mean, a lot of the speakers have said we still don't have technically trained talent. We don't have the structure enough to show the certification for these engineers. What is your perspective on the constraints? And maybe now we're already shifting into some of the questions. What do you feel, can happen or should happen to change things? So
Okay.
Engineer Additional, love to hear from
All right.
you.
Thank you, Gloria. My name is Engineer Dapo Adesina, and I'm the president of the Electric Mobility Promoters Association of Nigeria, MPAN. So to lend my voice to what are some of the constraints, one, I wouldn't want to touch on what they have said earlier, but one of those is education industry misalignment. So there's a systemic disconnect between university curricula, the technical training institutions, as well as the actual industry need. So be it from the solar system, is from the grid integration, there's a disconnect between what is learned on paper in school in theory and what is the actual situation. And so for us, one of the things, one of the way out for that is the firm must also invest heavily in what we call on-the-job training. So we advise that in such areas, the candidates or the employee already have the basics. You can build on it. So we advise in that situation for the on-the-job training, for there to be a ready workforce to be able to take on that space. The second point I want to speak about is specific to the industry I represent, which is the electric mobility. We all know that we are seeing the early stage industry problem, which is it's nascent, especially in this part of the world. And so what we do is, because the technology is already there, what we do advise our members or investors is you bring the technology that's from the OEM side, original equipment manufacturers. You have that partnership to train workforce, not to run to China or to Europe whenever there are issues, but to have an agreement where you can have the training within the ecosystem. You have people who are trained on the job. So it boils down to the same thing. For us to really scale, either, in the industry, you need to bring the ready, close the gap between the curriculum and the on-the-job training. So we ask people to have the on-the-job training so that the skill, because there's a difference between the training itself and the skill required to do the job. So that's my perspective in that.
And for clearly identifying, which, I completely agree with you that training and skill are different. Like a lot of us have said, from speakers from Sahara and IHS and even MasterCard, the skill and the curriculum being the bridge to that is one of the ways that we can solve that. So do we have any other perspectives from the room? Love to hear from the NCCC. Also from the
Yes, hello.
Sure.
Good morning.
Yes,
my name is Ibrahim Yazid. I'm with the National Automotive Design and Development Council. Sorry, my mic was off a little earlier, so I couldn't make a proper introduction. So to add to what Engineer Dapo has said, and also other speakers as well. EVs specifically, and green energy technology is quite new in Nigeria. So while we do have a certain level of expectations for where we expect to be, we also have to give ourselves a certain leeway in understanding that unless there's demand, there's going to be very little uptake, and there's going to be very little concern for the growth of that sector, or the growth of the repairs and maintenance of that sector. However, despite the fact that we do have a limited workforce on the job, the NADDT specifically, to address this issue, has signed an agreement recently with a South Korean business, an EV company that's going to come into Nigeria, provide that expertise, and also build an EV facility to build local EVs here in Nigeria. It's not going to be a one-day thing, and I don't believe that we are going to reach our expected targets quickly, especially with so many different economic challenges and with the high cost of adoption of EVs. So it's going to, and also coupled with that, there's the advantage of EVs are quite more durable than, I wouldn't say durable, maintenance friendly than regular ICEs. So before you actually have cause to repair an EV is going to be a considerable long time. So for people to actually practice what they train for, it's probably going to have to take a little bit a while. But with the current importation of used EVs, we're probably going to see an uptake in demand of EV mechanics and EV technicians. However, we are going to keep trying, and we are trying to look at the future and see how we can produce and provide the necessary technology and necessary skills for people to meet up with the demand when finally arises. So for now, I believe there's not that much demand. So people are not really, don't really care much for that particular side of the industry, because the more lucrative one is ICEs, which provide most money, because ultimately that is why people go into business. Very much.
Thank you, Engineer Ibrahim, for those insights. So whilst, I mean, I agree with you that the demand for EV is still growing, but I think the government has launched a couple of initiatives, CNG, favoring CNG, and the gas mobilization is becoming a hot topic. So I'd love to hear from those in the CNG space here. Engineer Stanley, perhaps you'd want to also chime in and throw your perspective to the conversation. And also the Women in Energy Network, would really love to hear the great work they're doing in already seeing how to breach that gap, being even examples as people leading in that space. I would also love to hear their perspectives. And then we have Ms. Bolanley from EcoSplash also would love to hear from you. So the floor is open.
All right, thank you so much for having me. I'm Engineer Stanley Asabo from Stars Legacy Group. Currently, we are driving the Stars Energy CNG conversion, Stars Legacy CNG conversion strongly in Benin City and Edo State, and that has been a huge success for us. We actually started with, can you hear me, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
We can hear,
all right.
We can hear you.
So we actually started with training and development, and last year we offered free training for women, especially just to have women included in the training force because of the current lack of technicians, especially in the CNG conversions. So with what we are currently doing, we are including women in our technical industrial system of the conversions, and we have some women at the helm of affairs leading the CNG Conversion Center as a director. And with the questions before us, beyond inclusion, we need to drive more on bringing women through special incentives, especially having to pay them for their internship for the period where they have to learn, and also to engage them strongly in areas of employment. So we are pioneering that more in Edo State, and with this conversation that is ongoing, I believe there's going to be more results moving forward. Thank you so much. That will be all for now.
Thank you, Engineer Stanley, and thanks for the great work that you're doing in that space. So we'd love to hear from Ms. Bolanle and also the NCCC team. I think there's someone here, or anyone else who also would like to, yeah, and the Women in Energy, Mrs. Asanimo, or anyone else from your team.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, we can hear you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Bolanle, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah, currently I'm driving. I'm on highway. I'm sorry. I can't talk right now.
No worries. No problem. No problem. We'll be happy to hear from you, or you could drop your contributions in the chat as well.
Hello? Yes, please.
Yes, we'll be happy to hear from you.
Thank you.
Whenever you can, or you can drop also your contributions in the chat. Ms. Asanimo from the Women Energy team, would you like to share your perspective to the conversation?
Yeah, good afternoon, or still morning. Good morning. Yeah. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Everything for me has been in line with the intent, and I'm actually excited at this event. It kind of just sums what I would term the movement, because it's a journey, it's not a destination. And but what I would like to highlight is that attention needs to be given more to the pipeline. I think that's, for me, is the future. And the movement for the women inclusion, which the world has seen that is no longer a buzz, it's a strategic imperative for performance. I think it's time to really think about more innovative ways to encourage the young girls to stay in STEM, because it's clear that technical skills are what is going to take us to our journey, which would be the leadership positions, where the decisions if you look at the elements of the questions you have put, at the end of the day, a lot will be driven by policy and decision. And if the right mix is not at that table, I think we're going to continue this journey the way we are. So we need to grow the skills from very young and build them onto leadership, so that we can start having the effects that we're all looking for. So what I liked the last speaker before last said was that an alignment with curriculum and real world must be looked into. It's not just enough to turn out engineers or technicians from schools, and there's really no connection with what the real world needs as skills to carry out these jobs. So that's one. I know Shell had a stick one time where they had the SITP program where they prepared graduates for the industry, not just Shell. I think that thing should be in the schools. We don't need to recreate that outside the schools. So that's what I think government can actually influence quickly, where we have that program in schools, so that the students come out ready. You find out a lot of companies today have graduate trainee programs, pretty much mirroring that alignment to real workforce needs. So I will ask questions. The rest of the world don't do that. Their graduates come out of school and are plugged into industry with just the normal acclimatization, which is 3 to 6 months. Why do Nigerian school environment, why do we have to now have special graduate trainee programs where we now retrain our graduates to be ready for industry? So that for me is something that I think can really make a useful impact if we can address that gap within the curriculum of the institution so that the graduates come out ready. That's one. And the second thing, like I said, is to give a lot of attention for catching young girls. We call them Catch Them Young. We actually have an initiative in the Women Energy Network called the Supernova Girl Initiative. It's a program where really we identify very smart young girls and role model them to stay. But one other gap we saw was financial. So we are looking at having incentives where we can provide stipends for them to stay, because we're still battle with our cultural norms where families prefer to train the male children. So if there's a choice to be made in a lot of families, they would choose to train their male children than the female children. So and it's normally due to financial constraints. That's clear. Because normally the world will not choose if there's enough to go around. So when there's that choice, they defer to the male children. So I think that if we can incentivize those young bright girls by ensuring that we can help them finish school, we will also close this gap that we're all talking about. So that would be my little nuggets to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanimo. Very rightfully said. And we've kind of touched on a couple of the questions already. And I feel like we're almost at the top of the hour where we want to now collate a lot of the things that have been said and see how we can, after we leave this room, just, small quick actions to see how to drive progress so that this does not just become a dialogue alone. And just echoing some of the thoughts that have been shared around intentionality in ensuring the curriculum has this. I see on the chat, Dr. Kafwe did mention something about the workforce readiness lens, and I'm going to touch on a question with regards to that because we have a lot of private sector players in the room. There is, I think one of the speakers also mentioned that even in the middle level management, there is also a gap there in region in the workforce around technical skills. So those are people who already are working in spaces like what IHS Stars is doing, like in electric vehicle companies. They already have these jobs, but somehow it still seems like there's no upward movement. How do we bridge that gap? How do we ensure that the workforce is able to encourage women to participate fully? They have the right conditions, they have everything set. So that is a question that I would throw open to the private sector players to share their insights. But we're now at the part of the question where we are going to ask ourselves what we're going to do after now to ensure that we move this conversation forward. So each and every one of us, we represent different stakeholders, be it private sector or civil society or the development partners. And we have the policy guys as well. What can we take home from here that we feel can be done in the next 90 days? In what ways do we feel like with the great work we're doing, we can work together to amplify so that we reach more and more of these talent? So I will open that up for everyone to share, but before then, there is a QR code that would also be shared. And I see also in the chat there are questions in the chat. In case I'm not able to read everyone's question, I just took a glance through to summarize because I'm trying to ensure that we close before the time. So, but I saw something about TVET, and that's definitely a great initiative. Speaking to what Engineer Adishino said about the curriculum and what Mr. Sanimo said about, just being intentional. So we can see how to ensure for the private sector, maybe would that be introducing more of those initiatives as some of your sustainability commitments? These are just thoughts on what we can do from where we are and from what we have. Do we want to also just come together to see how to amplify some of the work that is already being done? Yes, I'm happy to hear, but I'd really like to hear perspectives from, from IHS Towers on how, workforce readiness lens. So for those who are already in the space, how do we ensure that they move forward and grow to be top female engineers? And then I have a question also for Engineer Ibrahim. Even though the EV space is, there is not much demand, but right now, from your experience, to Engineer Ibrahim and to, Engineer Additional as well, what do you think the key skills are right now because I know that it's still really male dominated. But what are those key skills that you feel that the female population can play on? So those are my questions, and I will just open the floor for anyone to start from anywhere. Please keep the comments brief. Thank you all so much for being very cooperative with keeping the comments brief. So over to you all.
So
Hello?
okay, someone is speaking here.
No, please go ahead if you want something. I'll hold off. Hello?
Yes, you can go on, Engineer Ibrahim.
Okay. So to speak to your question, in terms of readiness, probably I wasn't clear. What I was speaking to earlier was the outcome of the industry rather than the efforts made towards building the industry itself. We truly believe that, of course, from the very beginning, that EVs and green mobility is the future, because we're trying to build an automotive industry in Nigeria. And to do that, you have to look at where the future of automotive is actually going. So do we have plans? Of course. Do we have programs set up from the very beginning? Yes, CNG programs. We've been doing this since 2020. We currently are developing NVQS, that's National Vocational Qualification Standards, for how to train EVV, how to train people to repair EVs and CNGs as well, so that at least we can have a standardized industry. Because what we believe is structure is important when it comes to growth. If you don't have a structure, that means everybody can just go do whatever they want, and at the end of the day, it's the consumers that suffer for it. So we have an NVQS standards coming up. We have an NVQS standards coming up that will probably guide everybody when it comes to trainings for technicians around Nigeria, around EV maintenance and repairs, and also EV infrastructure as well. So, and then to your questions on skills.
Sorry, what did you say? You called it MVQS? Sorry,
yes,
for
National
those who are
Vocational
not very technical.
Qualification Standards. Yes,
National Vocational
Qualification Standards. So it's kind of like a template for curriculums and standardizing workforce certification. So NEDC has done that for the ICEs, and now we're doing that for EVs as well, so that once they come in full force, we're ready for them. Now I think they're in SEC, where we're trying to get the approval for it to become official right now. So in terms of our backwards or background work, we're actually doing a lot to make sure that the industry is ready to take in those people, and we have a standardized workforce for when the industry is growing. And we talked about skills. You asked about skills, right? What is the ideal skills for women? The beautiful thing about technology right now, it's actually bridged the gap in terms of men and women. There's really very little difference between men and women in the qualifications. It all boils down to interest, really. So technology makes it a lot easier for women to engage in almost every single profession in the automotive industry. Whether I don't think there's anything that men can specifically do that women can't, but in terms of technology, software programming, easy software, the low-hanging fruits right now in EV, it's probably softwares and the technologies. That's what's probably accessible right now, until the mechanical aspects. The mechanical aspects, they share similarities with ICE, so there's not much difference in that. I also like to point out that in terms of gender equality and bringing in more women into the industry, we've done a lot of training specifically for women in Lagos. There's the in Lagos and in Kano as well. The idea has always been to make sure that at least it seems more less of a male-dominated society and make it more applicable, make it more enticing to women who otherwise would go into street hawking or selling things on the road, and show them that there's actually a better way to add value to their lives and the people around them. So thank you.
Sorry to buttress on that. So to make it attractive to the women from those low income communities, what do you guys specifically do? Because I've heard some of the speakers, talk about incentives. So what's the approach for how you make it attractive to them?
Well, the approach is usually it has to be start from we get women from those communities. We get women that actually are in the industry to show them that it is possible, that there is a benefit to being there, because first, it's better to see than when somebody actually tells you. And then secondly, all of our trainings, all trainings that NEDTC organizes are free. We do not charge them anything for it. We make sure that we give them the training, we give them the certification, and also at the end of the day, we give them the tools that they need to actually start. And we attach them to somebody so that at least they can start working under someone, because it's not a one-day thing. You have to train under somebody, especially in a technical environment as auto repairs and maintenance. So we, as government, is not about profit, it's more about how can we make sure that this thing is as attainable as possible to the less privileged. So everything goes around free. Nothing is paid by the individual.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So I also see Sahara Ejiro did mention they already have some initiatives. So even around curriculum. So you see, that's why we, this exists, so that we can see how to either leverage what, each other is doing and amplify, or even collaborate more strongly. So yeah, I think I'd love to hear from the NCCC. Ms. Chinwe, I don't know if you can speak now. Able to speak? Okay. If not, any other person who can.
Can I add as it relates to skills? Okay. Thanks. Just to add to what Engineer Ibrahim mentioned about, so in the e-mobility space, so we need to understand how that sector works. First of all, a number of people just understand, electric cars or electric vehicles. So it's not about electricity. So the sector is made up of so many components. There's a power component of it, which is the energy that makes it different from the internal combustion engine. So you're talking in terms of energy, you're talking in terms of the mobility itself, the vehicle, then you're talking about the environment. So there are so many skills around the electric mobility, we call it ecosystem, right? So going from as little as, from the data and the digital energy space, we have skills like energy data analytics. So maybe some people have been into data analytics. You can pivot to go into that space to be doing analytics in this regard of energy, because you need to do something like energy planning, energy assessment. And there's also opportunity for GIS, Geographic Information System, because you're going to be mapping electrification and doing electrification planning. Where do you want to site your power, your charging station or your battery swap station? So that's another space where people can leverage on. There's also, because electric vehicles have this component of IoT, that's Internet of Things. So it enables for the monitoring of the vehicle as well as the energy assets. So these are the spaces that are readily available that people should start looking at in terms of the digital and the data side of things. Another component is the HSC, health, safety, and environment. Now, because EVs are made up of high voltage devices, so ranging from 400 volts to 700 volts to 1000 volts as the case may be. So that means high level safety needs to be taken into cognizance for you to work in this space. So it's a specialized space. So one of the things you're taking through in terms of training in electric mobility, first of all, is safety, because you need to be alive to be able to do the job itself. The other one is the charging infrastructure. You know, so it now boils down to the likes of, because we advocate that we should have the combination of the grid as well as the renewable energy. So you need a lot of energy, either for your charging station, which is the stationary one for the four-wheelers, the cars, or for the 2- and 3-wheelers, which is electric keke and electric bikes, where you are able to do what we call the battery swap. You can swap your battery for another one. So these are the key, areas that are very attractive. Another one is battery storage and energy management system, because it's you run on battery. You know, when you're doing your e-mobility, you run on battery. So the battery, going from the battery chemistry to the battery charging, state of health and the state of charge. So for this to bring everything together, we at MPAN in September of last year, we received some funding support from the Siemens Foundation of Germany to organize training for roadside mechanics for the electric keke and electric bikes in Lagos. So we train 50 of them. And so we are open to partnership and collaboration. We want to scale and take this kind of trainings to different parts of the country so that we can have the ready-made skills that would work effectively in the ecosystem. So we are open to partnership and collaborations for funding support so that we can give a technical base to make the green economy viable as we expect. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Adeshina, for that. So I see Dr. Kafiu has her hands up, and also a question. It's a question in the chat from Dr. Serrano.
Yeah, so I just wanted to raise something that we could also consider, that, with looking at deploying job-ready women deliberately, right? And we would want to also tackle one of the major observations that the foundation has been championing, and it's around workplace safety, harassment risks, weak supervision, and they have been some of the key things that have limited sustained participation of women in these green technical areas. We're not saying AI should replace policy or leadership, but it is an enabler, and it accelerates readiness where systems are already overstretched. And we are saying AI-enabled monitoring tools like predictive safety and analytics, site risk detections, etc. They tend to enhance or improve compliance and incident prevention, especially in these energy sector sites that we are also considering. Digital reporting and escalation systems would definitely reduce fear of retaliation and increase accountability. And if we consider things like workforce analytics in our work using AI tools, they would also not only enhance what we do to enable gender participation, but it will also flag gendered patterns. Where attrition is concerned, we can have scientifically based data on attrition, placement, and all supervision quality, and enable us to strengthen systems of safety and culture that we have, and service quality, so that we can retain more women within these highly technical spheres as a way of incentivizing the process. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Kafiu. So are you saying that the foundation already has this as some initiative that is already deployed, or this is just your suggestion to the players in the room?
So this is not what we are deploying. This is what we have identified, right? And why we are stressing on safeguarding. And so safeguarding now is one of our major processes, and we've identified barriers and enablers where safeguarding is concerned within the different economic value chains that we are working, and would would share, just as I'm sharing here, with the critical sector players in the room and calling for their support to consider that as well, particularly when it comes to things around gender and inclusion. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Kafi. Yes,
Thank
so that's already one, one way that they could drive collaborations, because we're doing a lot around the bridging the gap for the skills. A lot of us are, but for work safety, workplace safety, harassment risk, because those are like, so what if the engineers go to the sites, we train them, how do we also ensure that these things are kept at bay? Those are things that, suggestions for ways that we can also ensure we make the conditions more friendly for more inclusion. There's also a question from Dr. Serrano saying, how do we make our ecosystem, not just the training, more inclusive? And I'm believing he's speaking on behalf of the foundation. So how do we align finance, industry? Am I putting wrong? Align finance, industry, and training to ensure young women and other marginalized groups are included.
Yes, thank you so much, Gloria. So my point is, Kafi touched on that it's a lens. So when you ask, do we have something specific? We're saying that we view anything that we do through this lens, right? And I want to encourage all the players here and stakeholders that when you look at being inclusive and bringing young women in, another marginalized group, don't stop at training. Don't just look and say, oh, we're training more young women and that's it. Training really is the ground level, it's the floor, right? But how can we ensure that these groups, young women and marginalized groups, have that agency? They've moved from being trained and being a workforce to actually directing the solutions that are coming into play. That's how we make it more inclusive. So move beyond training. Oh, it's almost now like, the word that everybody just uses and say, okay, when we talk about inclusion, we're training, right? But we're trying to move beyond training, look at it through the lens of the young woman and how can she help direct those particular solutions that you're bringing into play. So that's my encouragement and my comment for all the stakeholders here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Serrano. Would anyone else like to add? As we're talking about, what we can do. So the foundation has shared some ideas, and they've thrown also the challenge to the players in the room. Can we also share any other? Yes, I think someone has their hand up.
Yes, I do, Gloria.
Okay, sure.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
So, in addition to what Dr. Serrano said, on the back of that, I think it's important that we also look at what seems to be like the little things, right? So these women being trained and coming into the workforce, how are we making it conducive for them? How are we ensuring that anti-harassment policies have actual processes for enforcement to protect these women? How are we ensuring that even things like the PPEs, because PPEs are generally designed for the male physique and don't really accommodate women. So how are we ensuring that they're getting the right size? Because it's beyond just how it fits. It's a safety hazard as well if it doesn't fit properly, right? So those little things, how are we also incorporating them as we prepare the workforce for these people when they're integrated? I think it's important that we don't forget those things.
Yeah, thanks, Ejiro, for highlighting that. I would like to add that that's also part of the things we push at the UN Global Compact. We have accelerators that, talk about how to ensure you have these policies in place around gender equality and the human rights, because those are some of the pillars and principles we operate by. So we're also very open to collaborate. As you can see, that's why we're partnering with the Oxtra team and AGFF for this. And we're happy to, see how to escalate, see how to scale whatever it is existing to drive the topic further. I see Rume had her hands up.
Oh, thank you, Gloria. I know we've talked to previous speakers, Ms. Gray, Dr. Serrano, we've all talked about kind of how do we incentivize women? How do we, make it inclusive? And I think from my experience with working with MPAN and, hosting training workshops and trying to, make sure that we have a good gender balance to try and get female technicians or female engineers in the room. And I think it's, it's not just about awareness, it's about kind of reducing those barriers and making the opportunities real and visible. So for instance, many women are interested in being part of, these training initiatives, but from, looking at it, they don't see a clear way in. So when I think about it, we kind of need structured pathways, which a few people have mentioned, internships, apprenticeships as well, entry-level roles that are clearly communicated and accessible to these women. Second thing we probably need to look at as well is economic incentives. These pathways have to make financial sense to these women who are coming in. So are stipends during training provided? Are there paid internships? Are there clear earning potentials, for these women? Because without that, participation will be low for these programs. Then another thing a few people have mentioned as well, is that environment and support has to be there. So we need to be intentional about safe, inclusive work environments, flexible structures, especially for women who are, balancing, a husband, children at home, etc. So that has to be taken into account as well. And I think next is kind of visibility and representation. When women see others already who are performing, within these roles, it changes their perception and they think about it and they're like, okay, I can see other women doing it. I can also do that as well. So I think we have to kind of actively showcase, these kind of positions, these roles to these women. And, that's important about kind of bringing them in and, providing that inclusivity and, making it visible to them.
Thank you very much, Rima. Very, very aligned with, all that has been shared so far. So we are slowly getting to the top of the hour. In case there are any few comments, I would like to go around the room as just maybe in 1 minute to just show, we have the QR code on there, and thank you for those who have filled. We really love everyone to fill because we don't want this to just be a dialogue that ends here. A lot of us are doing great work. Part of what we try to do at the UN Global Compact is see how to be the platform to just, aggregate some of these things so they scale. So, and we see how maybe one can be matched with another to grow it, or even some of the things that have been shared here, we go back home and see how we can inculcate in our existing policies. So we would really love everyone to fill out the form. I think my colleague dropped it in the chat as well. So I would then now just briefly go around the room for everyone to just give their, I always like to say this, what can you do on Monday? What can you do on Monday speech? What can you do on Monday is just telling us what next steps you would intend to take post this conversation. And it doesn't need to be something big. It can really be, something as good as now, there are things that around site risk, workplace safety. Maybe you haven't really thought of that and you now want to look into that. So something, just very small steps. So I will just from in no particular order, I'll just call as I see on my screen. I have Ms. Asanimo representing the Women in Energy Network. We'd love to hear what your takeaways and next steps would be post this. And after that, I have Orutu Obi. I don't know if she's with the Women in Energy Network, but we'll just like to go on from there. So you have the floor.
All right, thank you. Well, there's a lot that can be done, but my immediate mind is telling me how to leverage on this opportunity. I think we have a lot in common. So my immediate plan is to engage with the UN Global Compact Office and then see how we can be a pillar for your next actions, because we have a pool of community in the energy value chain. We'll focus on the energy value chain. We have a pool of community. We have access to a lot of possible beneficiaries to these laudable government initiatives. So it's pretty much come in and see how we can work together for the impact we're looking for. So that will be my next step. So I'll be either calling you or Naomi to see how that can happen. That will be my next step. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that. And thank you for keeping to time. Oh, wow. I need to give all of you speakers really a medal. Like, thank you all so much. Miss Orotu Hobby. I don't know if you're able to speak, but if you're not able to speak, I have Miss Ini. I don't think we've heard her voice. Love to hear from you. Miss Ini and Tai. Are you able to speak? Okay, I have Abubakar from Phoenix Renewable. Okay. Ogochukwu. Okay, I also have Sylvia Akuma.
Okay, so I will good morning everyone. We are still morning. The conversations have been inspiring. I was particularly interested about electric keke and electric bikes. And from the comment I dropped, we are thinking about closing gender gap. It starts from the grassroots. And we have a lot of young girls in polytechnics. I remember the last meeting I had at Hora Polytechnic in Warri. I stay in Delta State. The Hora Polytechnic in Delta State. There are a lot of girls it was a girl, child, gender stuff. There were a lot of girls there. So with what is happening, I don't know how we can drive this. But the TVET, with these free trainings on technical and the rest, the federal government is putting a lot of focus on TVET. The Delta State coordinator for Forum of Female Lecturers, I've been having some interaction with her, and since she became the head of TVET at Ogara. I think it's something that we should actually push. Every polytechnic is actually supposed to have a TVET center. But in Nigeria, it's not very, very operational. Outside the country, in many African countries, they are really thriving. So most of the technical skills get certifications. Green energy is fairly new, and this can be integrated as the federal government is beaming their light on TVET, technical skills. I think it is something that we should capitalize at this instant and push for the integration of all the green energy ecosystem into the TVET and make it compulsory for at least one skill per female. There are many females who are actually technically sound, and they may be hidden in other departments which are not in alignment with technology, maybe biz admin or the rest. But every female student go and just make it open. We may discover a lot of talents that are hidden. I think I'll stop here. That's my suggestion. It's something that we should. Then the Dr. Nuruddin spoke about the trainings that are free. I think within the universities, it could be an additional certifications. It could be an additional skill. It could be an additional learning experience for these skills to be open to our fresh graduates. I have been particular about mentorship. I've had a lot of corpers come into my organization, and within 3-4 years, what they have learned by just pairing them with experienced technicians, experienced engineers at the mid-level, you can't even imagine it. So it's about incorporating this continuous learning mindset in every organization. Sustainability, like we said, the pipelines is what we teach the younger technicians or engineers that they will grow with. And most people who are excelling are people who actually grew with a business from the beginning. Training should not just be seen as a side that is something that you decide to or not. For regulators, make like
Ms.
evidence. Yeah,
We
let me
are
just stop
almost,
here. Yeah,
yeah,
I'll
we have
stop
just
here now.
5 minutes,
I'll stop.
so we can take the other. Thank you. Thank you so much. Are you with the Precipi team? Or what's your organization, please?
No, I am not. I just stepped out of a role, Executive Director of Corporate Services for Bison Sources Limited. We are an EPCI company. I worked there for about 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Please, you can feel so that we would reach out accordingly to you as well on some of the points that you've shared. So I think the next person is, sorry, I know we are really over time, but we'd really love to hear from the others as well. The next person I see on my screen is Engineer Additional, and then IHS Towers, as Ms. Fatima is next. I don't know if Ms. Bolanle is still able to, but we can go to Engineer Stanley afterwards. So Engineer Additional.
Okay, yeah, thanks for
I know
the
you
opportunity.
keep it very 30 seconds.
Yes,
Thank you
yes,
so
30
much.
seconds, 30 seconds. So as part of our main objective in at MPAN, which is policy advocacy as well as capacity and development of personnel, we'll be willing to work with whatever comes out in terms of policy coordinations. We'll be willing to work with the rest of the team and as well as to also help in structuring trainings and skill set for the EV ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Dapo. I have Miss Fatima.
Yeah,
Next.
so from IHS perspective, from what has been said first, it's like we're all aligned on what the issues are. We've identified what the issues are. We've agreed there are skills gap. And then, I mean, the way to go about it is what we should be talking about that. I hear what one of the speakers said about being intentionality in resolving this issue or in scaling up this conversation. So I think that's one takeaway for me. It shouldn't just be what we've talked about here, just discussing, and we're not scaling up for to make our conversation here a reality. So it's very important that we take this conversation further. And at IHS, we are ready to partner with the private sectors. We're ready to partner with academia. We're ready to also partner with government on policy alignment. So for us, we are open to taking this conversation to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, IHS Towers. So Rume, permit me to know since, okay, Engineer Stanley, because Dr.
Yeah.
Dapo, Engineer Dapo.
Thank you so much, Gloria. And thank you everyone for being part of this conversation. For us at Stars Legacy CNG, speaking for what we are currently even launching out by May, we are launching out a swag force. A swag force, we called it Stars Women Agile Green Force. It is majorly purely for ladies, for women into the CNG conversion business, the entire ecosystem. And also for us, this conversation is very important and we'll love to continue working with the team in every area possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Engineer Stanley. Now I have Ijiro.
Thank you, Gloria. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I think what to do on Monday is really going to be about discussing with my organization to see how we can support in terms of, for instance, kitting the women who come after their training. So like a starter pack kit, right, for some of these initiatives.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you. I don't know if Ms. Bolanle is still able to speak. I know she was driving, so I'll move to Dr. Kafiu.
Thank you. Was struggling to unmute. I think we've had very rich conversations, and the conversations reinforce the need for some discipline follow through. We will definitely take some insights from today's focused insights back into some internal focused conversations with our teams. And as we do so, we'll remain anchored, in our Young Africa Works ambition, which I'm sure some of you know, is to enable 7 million young Nigerian women to successfully transition to work. And we'll definitely revert with clarity on where we can best direct our catalytic role. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kafi. I have Engineer Ibrahim. Okay, Engineer Ibrahim, not sure if he's able to. I have Dr. Serrano, and then Ms. Chinwe. I don't know if you're able to speak now. Dr. Serrano. Engineer Agu Jane.
Hello.
Okay, yes.
Thank
We can
you.
hear you, Dr.
Yeah,
Serrano.
I think I missed you for a bit. I'm going to align with my colleague, Dr. Kafui, in that, first of all, we've had extremely rich conversations. I really enjoyed it. And I can see that a lot of us are beginning to move away from just considering the sector or the industry from the demand and the scaling point of views, because we know that that is there, but also to start deepening inclusion right from the very beginning. Because if we don't do it now, we're going to get to that point where the market will run away and leave all the marginalized people behind, So it's very important that we start having those conversations and the considerations from right at this nascent stage of the industry. So great conversations as for our commitment, our line with Kafui in terms of our approach to that. So thank you very much, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Serrano. So I have Shola. I don't know if, or Engineer Agu Jane. I see Sulman from IHS. I believe IHS has spoken already. So thank you all so much. I know we've run over by 4 minutes, but I want to really say a huge thank you to everyone for honoring the invitation and, bringing in also your passion, your contributions, really insightful, great work already. Like Dr. Serrano said, we can see that there's already work going on in the ecosystem. This is just the beginning of the conversation on how we can do better and bridge this inclusion gap. And on behalf of the AGFF Secretariat, the UN Global Compact Network Nigeria, and the Presidency Precify team, we're going to sign out. Thank you to the team at the UN Global Compact, AGFF Secretariat, Obinna Nduku, thank you. I would like to say that we have the Africa Green Future Forum happening in June, and we are attempting a large climate awareness walk in also a few weeks before that. So we would reach out to you to see how you can also be part of that exciting initiative. But thank you all very, very much. And we will be in touch with next steps. Have a very, very fulfilling Thursday.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
everyone. Thank
everyone.
you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right.